This is Ben Doughty for the all-new Andy Blade podcast, and we're delighted to be joined this afternoon by lead vocalist of the iconic Skids, presenter, poet, filmmaker, Richard Jobson. Thank you for this audience today, sir.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm very excited. I didn't realise it was the first one, so how amazing.
Yes, and it's great. Thanks a lot for agreeing to do.
No, it's a joy. I'm an Andy Blade fan. As you probably know, or as you've maybe read, as a kid, I always loved theatre because they were the same age as me, and we were genuinely kids, because a lot of the people in bands at the time were much older, you know, and I always really kind of went towards people who were from my age, like the Skids, for example, would do matinees all the time, because I got angry that a lot of the people my age couldn't get into the gig.
Too,
yeah, so we'd do a 5 o'clock gig, and then we would do a gig at 8 o'clock, 8:30 or whatever. It used to piss the other guys off, but I didn't care, you know, because I really wanted people my age to be able to see us, because when I first met certainly all the kind of punks from Manchester and London, I was actually quite shocked by how old they were. And they really weren't old. They were like 20 or something.
25.
Yeah, but she's not old. But when you're 15 and 16,
sure.
they're really old.
When I found out Joe Strummer was 25, I was with him on his 25th birthday, and I thought, fuck, that's
yeah, exactly. Well, I was also friends with Andy Chizoki, who ran the Roxy Club, and there used to be Shagaramas, and which was a kind of gay club before then. And he was friends with my oldest brother, Francis, who was this crazy guy. He was a Hare Krishna monk, but before he became that, I shared a bedroom with him in Scotland, and he had this really amazing taste in music. So as a young kid, like I'm talking 10, 11, 12, I was listening to Captain Beefheart and Frank Zappa and a band called the MC5, and of course my great hero was Iggy Pop, and he introduced me to all that music. And then of course, because he saw I really loved Iggy, he introduced me to the New York Dolls, and of course behind all that was the great poet Lou Reed and a bit of David Bowie, not so much for me, but certainly the New York thing was big in my eyes. So in Scotland, in this big kind of working class housing estate where we came from, I was walking about with an Iggy Pop album when you were a kid, and the other people who were my age or a little bit older was Motley Hoople or Slade maybe, or even worse, Genesis or Yes or Pink Floyd or something. So I was already into the tribal thing of what punk rock was before it exploded in the UK. And I remember when I got the Live Roxy album, which you guys are on, and it was great, because Wire were great, but the band that I loved the most were Eater, because it just was the real thing. And I used to say that, because Stuart Adamson, who I played with, he was much more sophisticated than me. He was into like guitar music, like Bebop Deluxe, Nils Lofgren.
I like it. I like Deluxe as well.
Well, the first time they met me when they were looking for a singer was at a Bebop Deluxe concert, but I didn't go to see them. I went to see the support band, Doctors of Madness. Yeah, that's right. So I went to see a guy called Kid Strange because I really liked them.
Yeah,
and I was always into the kind of what we would now call cyberpunk, kind of sci-fi punk, which would be Alex Harvey. I really loved him as a frontman. The music was a bit prog rock, but as a frontman, he was the greatest. I went to see him when I was like 12, play with Motley Hoople in Edinburgh, and he smashed a big hole in the stage and was singing the song Vambor, this kind of futuristic gang song. Amazing frontman. I was with my mate Budgie, and we were skinheads then, and we had our Crombies on, the gear, white stay press, cherry red docks, and looked the part, surrounded by patchouli oil and the hippies, you know, and they were looking at us two kids thinking, what the hell are these two? Kind of scared of us, even though we're only 12.
Yeah.
And then Alex smashed this big hole in the stage, and then Motley Hoople had to come on. They were all wearing like these big platform boots, and there was a guy called Ariel Bender,
I remember.
and he was wearing wings and this big guitar, and he had to walk around this big hole. And we were thinking, what a bunch of wankers! We're shouting abuse at them. Although, guilty pleasure, I'm a bit of a fan of Ian Hunter. You know, great lyrics. Yeah, I mean, it was the outfits, because, you know, we were, I guess what I'm trying to tell you is, when we were kids, there was a couple of us, me and my friend Budgie, who were just different from everybody else. And I think that when punk happened in London, you know, and in the South, we were ready for it immediately. It wasn't like it took a long time, there was no social media and stuff. It was just like, let's go.
Was it easy to get gigs in London?
No, it wasn't. I mean, the first time I came down, we nicked a motorbike, me and my friend David Wilson, and we were 15. We didn't have a license or insurance, obviously, and the bike, I don't know where it came from. It was a Czechoslovakian, I think called MZ, really horrible bike, 125, and we nicked it, and we went all the way to London, down the A1 in the winter, because we wanted to get leather trousers made in Beaufort Market. So we nicked this bike, and we went all the way down. We were only kids. And when we got put away for doing it, if you got caught, no, we didn't get pulled. I didn't have money to put fuel in this bucket of shit, and we got there. We got to Beaufort Market, and we got measured up. We could do it in 3 hours. This hippie girl, we got measured up. I said, "You've got to be tight. You've got to see my cock. It's all this shit, right?" She's like, "What the fuck are these savages doing that kind of hippie place?" It was down the bottom of the King's Road, and she said to us, "You should go over there to that shop, Sex." And we went in, we met Sid, and he said...
What year was that?
76.
Oh, right.
So, so he... So I had a Captain Beefheart t-shirt on with braces, these tight trousers and winkle pickers, and this kind of mad hair, black with a white stripe down it. And he was like, "Who are you?" And he couldn't quite work out what we were saying because of our very thick accents. But he really liked us, these two little feral punk dudes. And he said, "So what, you've come along from Scotland to get leather trousers?" I went, "Yeah, man." And he went, "So what are you going to do? Where are you going to stay? You can stay at my place tonight. I've got a squat up in West Hampstead, West End Lane. You can stay with me tonight because, you've got nowhere to stay or you ain't got any money or anything." And we went, "Nah, mate, we're going back up." With our trousers on. So we got the gear on, but we met him, and he became a kind of pal. Right. And he was always very kind to me and very sweet. And so, obviously, these terrible things happened, and people say bad things about him. I'm quite defensive because my memory of him is as a very sweet, nice guy, very kind to me, looked after us, and then I became friends with Paul and Steve. I never got on with John because he was a horrible person, and
he pissed on me once.
Did he?
Yeah, he called me.
I thought he actually urinated into a fairy liquid bottle and squirted you. Listen, I think it's important we get the details correct. Do you not think?
Yeah, I never got on with him. I was friends with his brother Jimmy, and we had a football team called the 4B2s, and it was mad. It was like Jonesy was in the team, but Jonesy was our half-time trainer, and basically pulling brandy into people's mouths and cocaine and bits of heroin, I think, in those days. Crazy football team, insane. And there was guys in that football team who got put away for being in the IRA and stuff. Right. It was really a seriously crazy.
How did you meet Stuart?
Stuart, I met. I went to see a band called Doctors of Madness, who was supporting a band called Bebop Deluxe, and I was a real fan of cyberpunk, sci-fi punk, as I guess we now call it. And Alex Harvey would be one of them, and Kid Strange, who was a singer in Doctors of Madness, fell into the same category for me. I mean, I had fairly eclectic taste, to be frank, because I also liked a German band called Neu a lot, who had a great song called Hero, that I loved very much, and Hallo Gallo and stuff. I didn't realise they had long hair until I eventually saw a picture of them, because Neu was just on the cover.
I just remember them by the logo.
It was really cool, kind of like branding. I thought, they've got to be a kind of like pseudo punk band. And then they all had long hair, and they were all like kind of intellectuals, going on about Hegel and Wittgenstein and Nietzsche and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. Anyway, I was at the gig, and they saw me. I looked different and all that, and I was on my own. And I was about to leave after the Doctors Madness played, because I wasn't really interested in the kind of guitar heroics of Bill Nelson. And they stopped me and said, like, "What's the story with you?" And I was like, "What the fuck do you want to know for?" You know what I mean? I thought it was an aggressive thing. Because I was used to that where I came from, because I was a Catholic family in a Protestant area. It was tough, as a kid, really tough. So I thought, maybe we're Protestant. All the kids were Protestants, apart from me. And they said, we're starting a band and we're looking for a singer. Do you fancy it? Or like this kind of punk thing that's been happening in London. I went, is this for real? So I did an audition for them. I remember standing outside for the audition. There was all these other guys there. They all had these like Brian Ferry flicks. One of them had a boiler suit on too. I was like, what the fuck is this? Do you know what I mean? I turned up with my Raw Power t-shirt on and my by then beloved leather trousers. And I was like, what was this? I said, they're like, fuck off, you can't do this. It could be a punk band, mate. And so I basically threatened them, and I think they just went, and so when they opened the door to do the big audition, there was only one person there.
Right.
So I did I Want to Be Your Dog by Iggy, which is really easy, as you know, it's only 2 chords, I think, or whatever. It's the same melody all the way through, and very easy, and really lovely words actually for that song, but easy to remember. So I did that, and Bill Simpson, the guy who played bass, said, "Oh, this guy's shit, man. He can't sing and he can't dance." And Adamson went, "Perfect. We got a guy." So that's how I got the job, and rest history really. And I made a kind of, like a covert agreement with him at the start that we would never. Because in Scotland, it's a bit like Northern Ireland, that sectarian thing. I said, we must never go into that territory. Because, if you do all that, I'm out. If you hear any of that shit. Because I was brought up, my mother, who was a singer, sang in all the Irish clubs. She taught me a lot about the politics of Ireland and what the Brits had done there and stuff. And, I was very aware of that as a young guy. And I'm very aware of what the British Army did in Derry during Bloody Sunday, all that stuff. So I was tuned into all that. So you go in that territory, I'm gone. You know what I mean? I'm not. So I stuck to my guns with that, and I still do to this day. I won't stand any right-wing fucking bullshit from anybody straight in there. I won't have it. So and any anti-Irish thing, I won't stand for either. And I still, with great pride, look at Rangers fans with great disgust.
Right. What is that then between Celtic and Rangers?
Well, Celtic are a team that were formed by the essentially Irish community in the west of Scotland, Glasgow, who were from the south of Ireland during the various troubles with the potato famine and stuff, which was obviously created by the British government. And they came through there to work, and were stuck in a ghetto in the east end of Glasgow, and were treated appallingly. But they built this football team called Celtic, and Celtic's always been built on the principle of helping those with less. It's a simple principle. So they're a Catholic team. There's a Christian principle, but it's nothing to do with Catholicism. It's more Marxist, more socialist.
So there's always been that animosity between.
Yes, there is, because the Rangers they didn't even play Catholics until 1985 or something. So they had a kind of covert policy of they just won't employ them. But it's more to do with almost like a white Protestant hegemony. It's their place, they control it, and you'll do what you're told. And we didn't like that, so that's where the word rebel came from. And Celtic became the rebels, and So as an identity, I've never identified with Catholicism. It's absolutely not for me, but with the nationalist community and with anybody who's subjected to that kind of abuse, both physically and mentally, I always stand by.
Which is right, hence.
Yes, absolutely. And Celtic fans have supported the Palestinian cause for nearly 30 years or more. So it's not like it just suddenly happened because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But in some people's eyes, it's the fashionable thing to do. But they've been doing it for a long, long time.
I mean, a lot of people aren't aware that the Palestine cause didn't start with Gaza in last year in October, and the way they've rewritten that history.
I mean, they're not aware of the amount of intifadas there's been and why these things exist, and they're very quick in their own stupid way to associate, like the Palestinian cause with terrorism, and it's like that's ridiculous.
So that's their thing. Only thing they can use is just say they're all terrorists.
It's absolutely exactly as the Israelis are doing at the moment. It's a great genocide right through Gaza.
Do you find it as amazing as me that the media don't seem to be reporting on a live genocide going on? And
it's insane. I just can't understand it, and I don't understand why in the House of Commons I'm not hearing our MPs, our representatives, standing up talking about it. It's almost like it's been almost whitewashed out of history.
It's a bit strange, isn't it? I mean, that right to self-defence line, that keeps coming up all the time, and so that's all you need to say. And yet behind all of that whole thing about, I thought, about our modern caring societies, the worst thing that can happen is genocide.
Yeah.
And it's going on, and it's just.
And there's no doubt that the Israelis could have negotiated the hostage release and chose not to. I mean, they wanted to wipe Gaza out.
Yeah,
and they've taken this opportunity to squeeze it. North Gaza will never exist again. You know that. I mean, that will now be a kind of they'll keep the Gazan Palestinian citizens hemmed in the south, and that will be a flat land that will never. And then eventually settlers will be there, because you think about it, there's beautiful sea-fronted apartments.
They want it.
They want it. Of course you do. I mean, it's all a land grab, and we know that. I've been there. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've got no sympathy for the Zionist cause whatsoever, zero. So, and I'm not anti-Semitic, you know.
But you don't have to be. But then again, I've equated being anti-Israel with being anti-Semitic.
Yeah, but I'm not, and I'm not anti. You know, I'm anti. You know, I've been brought up in. My father brought me. I was a dyed-in-the-wool socialist to believe in the principles of generosity, kindness, and egalitarian society where everyone begins equal. You know, and that's the starting point. So I don't really care about creed or colour. These are things that are irrelevant to me. But I really truly believe, even at this late stage, I'm 64 now, but you know, I'm a tough little fucker still, and I still stand up for what I believe in, and I won't have it. I just won't have it. If it's in my company, if it's around me, if I ever heard any of my band members say anything like that, I'd be out. My wife's from an Italian heritage, and I had a guy who was our driver, who's a Rangers fan, talking about, we're going to go to an Italian restaurant. He said, I said, I'm not going there, it's full of papes. I went, what's a pape? He went, yeah, no, then Catholics. I went, listen, mate, see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Get yourself another job. You ain't going to be working with us anymore, you fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Talking in that kind of insanely stupid language in 2024. I mean, how dare you? And so, you know, these things you've got, if you believe it, you've got to stand up for it and you know, deal with the consequences of that, of course.
Do you deal with many consequences of standing up for the Palestinian cause?
I get a bit of abuse, yeah, but I can take it, you know, and I can give it. So, yeah, I'm very proud of my stand on it, and I wish there was more people like yourself who were out there who were willing to stand up, not hide behind things. The amount of musicians who have actually gone and played in Israel, I'm shocked by, and the amount of people.
You know, I'm amazed by that as well.
But these people that are meant to have principles go off and play birthday parties for Russian oligarchs' daughters because they get like $500,000 US in cash and stuff. People who stand up and tell people how they should be living their lives get lost. Do you know what I mean? These people, I mean, you can see through them. Joe was a good guy. Strummer was a good guy. I really think he was one of the good guys, and I loved him. You know, we played with them in Scotland when they first came. White Riot tour, you know, Scotland, and we played with them a few times. And Joe was really, I would say, a friend, you know, and I really looked up to him and admired him. Mick, I came to know Mick more in later life, and I like Mick a lot. I've never really known Paul, and Topper by that time was in a bad way. So, but Pistols were my mates, and the Banshees were, because Severin and I were flatmates, and I always had a thing about Susie, like most of us did.
She lives opposite, their manager Neil.
Yeah, of course, and his brother Ray, the photographer.
They both lived opposite my mum's house in Whetstone.
Did they really?
So I've got in with them quite just for lifts back from the rocks and things like that. And
Neil's passed away, right?
He did a few years back.
He got in a bad way.
But we played many a late night game of Monopoly with Susie and the Banshees after.
I spoke to her on Friday on the phone for a while. She's moved back to England, and it was great to talk to her. Severin and I used to have this basement flat up in West Hampstead, and Susie would say,
oh, was that the one that Spiz was at?
Yeah, Spiz was upstairs, that's right, And Susie would say, she was living in South London somewhere, and she'd go, is it okay if I stay over? Can I sleep on the sofa tonight? I said, well, you have my room, and I'll sleep on the sofa. You know, Susie. She goes, that's not a passport for you to come in. I went, listen, come on, I would never do that, although I was besotted with her. So she let her stay there, and then a few weeks later, Severin was always having parties, right? He was a bit of a ladies' man, Steve, big time, and they loved the drinking and stuff. I'm a non-drinker, so it was wow. So
have you always been?
Yeah, I'm epileptic, so I don't
right.
So anyway, she said, can I stay over? You know, is it okay? I went, yeah, have my bed. I'll take the sofa, no problem. You know what I mean? Susie, for God's sake. And then she said to me one night, she said, is it okay if me and Budgie stay over tonight? I mean, is it fuck off? I had no idea they were an item. You go, fuck off, get a taxi. That's the end of that one. Yeah, but no, we were still pretty close. It was lovely to talk to her. I talked to her for a long time. I didn't manage to see her when she was back out, but we had some great times together.
Yeah.
What I love about the period that you and I are from is it never felt competitive. You know what I mean? Everyone was kind of in it, and you never felt, oh, I'm better than them, or you know, we deserve better than that. I never felt. I'm sure you.
There was a kind of common cause at the beginning.
There was, and I didn't mind. You know, like being in the support band or whatever. It never bothered me because as a kid in Scotland, we were the punk bands. You know? So right at the beginning. So when the Buzzcocks came and the Pistols came and the Clash came, and Stranglers. Anybody, we were the support band, so we got the gig. So it was an amazing thing. I remember the NME voted us the best punk band in Scotland. And I told my mother she didn't like the idea of me because she was a bit Catholic and Irish and all that stuff, and very in a kind of conservative way, unfortunately. Do you know what I mean? Because my dad was the opposite. I don't mean she voted conservative. I mean she was just very straight, you know. And
that generation.
and she said didn't like that because I dyed my hair black with this big white stripe and the leather trousers and all that. And she was like, oh man, what's going on with you? What's the deal? And I remember her oldest son was already a Hare Krishna, and she was like, what have I done?
She's losing him.
Yeah, what have I done? So I said to her, well, listen, look, we've just been voted the best punk band in Scotland. She said, well, that's fine, dear, but you're the only punk band in Scotland. That was it. They had a choice of one. And in those days, it was kind of like that. You know, there were a lot of bands that were emerging, but they were all Velvet Underground copyists. They didn't have the spirit of, and they weren't into the kind of essential ingredients. You know, like the original MC5 and Biggie, and you know, they didn't really get that. They were more into the kind of dark poetry.
But the bands that like that were a bit older than me. You know, I think you're a year older than me, so I was 15 around that time, and my view on the whole thing was that I can't believe they're taking my band seriously enough to give us gigs, you know, so I certainly didn't care about where we were on the bill.
Yeah, it was amazing though. I mean, I loved it because I didn't see you at the beginning, and just the pictures, I mean, we saw them in A&E, so look at this.
But I think if we were older, if we'd been 25 then, I think maybe the competitive thing might have been a bit stronger, but again, from my point of view, I was getting away with it, you know.
Yeah, and also you were in awe of them as well. You know, you suddenly really.
In a way, it made me stop being a fan of pop bands. Because once you meet these people, it's very difficult to have the same.
Anything good about them? Yeah. I mean, the thing is, that in my own strange world, and let me just elaborate on that bit, because when I'm epileptic, and when you're epileptic, a lot of people don't want to have anything to do with you. You know what I mean? You're a bit that kind of outsider because it's a weird thing, you know, seeing somebody.
Yeah.
Well, I've never seen myself have one, obviously, but you know, it must be kind of strange. You know,
does it still happen?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I had a bad, Jesus, Scarlet. I had a bad crash recently. Fell on the floor and bashed my head a bit. But it's something that has kind of been difficult throughout my whole life, but. At the same time, it's the thing that's kept me the guy that I am, because being free of drugs and alcohol.
Lucky not to have been in.
And I think I worked with two of the greatest guitar players that ever existed in our generation, Stuart Adamson and John McGeoch.
Yeah.
And both of them committed suicide through alcohol.
That's right. I wanted to talk about Stuart. I mean, were you, after the Skids and after the Army Show and after all that on Big Country, were you mates through?
No. It was kind of strange. I mean, everybody was off the mind, and this, I don't mean this sentimentally, right, or with any melodrama, that I wouldn't be around for long, because I was having a lot of seizures, and I was pretty sick. The drugs I was on, this thing called phenytoin, were not helping, and I was pretty ill. And it looked like, you know, and my feeling was, and when you're younger, you're not scared of death, you know, when you're just like, well, it's going to happen, I'm fucked. So I thought, I ain't going to make 21, so I should make the most of it. So I'm going to have a great time. was my feeling. So I'm in this band called the Skids, and we were successful pretty quickly. And you're meeting all these people that, Joe Strummer, you're actually hanging out with them backstage like this, and you're this little kid, and you think, what am I doing here? I'm an imposter. But I got over that quickly because I thought, I'm going to grab this and run with it. So I wanted to be, the excitement was I tried Manchester, but the excitement was London. And I really wanted to be part of that whole London scene immediately. And I did. That was my thing. And it was really because I felt like I had one of those like egg timers, you know what I mean, with the sand dripping, and I said, by the time it gets to the end, I'm done. And I've got to squeeze as much fun.
When did you get into the TV sort of side of the thing?
Well,
I noticed in the 80s that you began popping up on various art shows and stuff, and I wondered how.
Well, I mean, I survived. I mean, that was the most important thing. I mean, Stuart left the Skids and went on to start a rock band, really. You know, Big Country don't do it for me. It's all very straightforward, romanticised, you know, kind of landscape bullshit in my ears. I don't like it. Status quo with bagpipes, really, and so it just doesn't do it. No edge to it. And I tried the Armoury show with McGear, but you know, you can imagine how hard it is when you're with somebody who's a full-blown alcoholic and drug addict, and you try to write songs and stuff. It's very, very, very hard, and it was very disappointing. So the day that John Lydon phoned him up and said, "Do you want to join Pill?" John called me and said, "You know, this is what's happening." I went, "We'll do it." You know, because I don't want to work with you anymore, because you know, it's just awful to be around it. He was, but it was a mess.
There's an interesting thing that I actually read today. I did a bit of last-minute research, because back in the 90s in Richmond, Andy and I had a friend called Chris Jenkins, who was a sound engineer at the Townhouse Studios.
Oh yeah, I know Chris.
And he always claimed when we'd be hanging out in the pub and chatting, he said that he played on some Skids records, including Into the Valley.
He did.
And we've only just established that today from the horse's mouth. Me and Andy have spoken about this for years.
Yeah.
But he played on the tracks, I believe, because Stuart Adamson walked out of the sessions.
He did.
So, can you tell us about how that
well, Stuart had a lot of dark stuff in his life, and he suffered from, I think, a form of depression and anxiety. And when we was away from Dunfermline, like I was the opposite. I couldn't wait to get away from that place, you know. But he gravitated back to it, and in a funny kind of way, he gravitated towards a life where, very early on, I might add, that you had a mortgage, a car, a house, children, all that kind of these traditional values, which I was thinking, well, I ain't going to be around, so it doesn't really matter. So there was we were pulling in different directions from quite early on.
Was he the same age?
No, he was much older. He was like 3 or 4 years older. And I think when you're that age, that's a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think he suffered from some kind of depression and would be somewhere and he'd just vanish. So we're in the middle of recording our debut album, working with this guy called David Batchelor, who produced Alex Harvey, and Chris Jenkins was the engineer at the Townhouse in London, and a very good, nice guy. And also a great guitarist, I might add, but not a punk. He was sitting there with his long hair and his hair, so absolutely. So I sure just vanished, and the songs weren't finished. So Chris came and did a few overdubs, and that compounded Stuart's anger.
That's what I wondered.
He was furious. He was furious, and he said to me, "How could you allow that?" I mean, how could you have fucked off?
Because I always thought there's no way Stuart is going to say, "Yeah, sure, play the guitar part." He walked out.
Well, Stuart was a very accomplished guitarist. I mean, a lot of guitarists from that era, as you know, could play the 3 chords, but couldn't take it beyond that. I mean, Stuart could play. Like John McGeer could really play. These guys were.
How was it working with Bill Nelson? Did Stuart love that?
Yeah, that was my idea because. And Simon Draper from Virgin, because we Stuart had such a terrible time on the original album. And remember, we did those 2 albums in 1979, so we did them back to back. So in Auditioning Europa, we brought in Bill, and it was a funny one because we brought in Bill because we wanted to accelerate the guitar part of the music, but Bill was moving into this new electronic thing with, what were they called, Red Noise, yeah, and he wanted it to be, and we had Rusty Egan on drums, who was from the Blitz and Visage, and, you know, and
great drummer.
Yeah, and he wanted to get rid of the guitar thing. So it was. But Stuart was really happy during that period.
But I did recognise a lot of Nelson-ish riffs. And stuff
Definitely, yeah. And so Stuart, you know, it was the happiest. I wrote a little book about it actually for this tour, just about Days in Europa, and I think Stuart was the happiest he'd ever been with the band, even though with the next album we did, Absolute Game, it was our most successful. I mean, and the tour was the most successful. I remember the last gig we did in the UK was Hammersmith Odeon, as it was called then, sold out, and you really felt like the band were really going somewhere, and that was the last gig he did with us, you know, and then he went off to form his own thing with, which became, as I say, Big Country, which were phenomenally successful.
Yeah.
And I went off to do something a little bit artier with the Armoury show with John McGeoch, and the Armoury show could have worked if McGeoch could have been just. You listen, you can't be judgmental in life, right? I mean, if people have these things going on, like they need a beer, they need a line of coke, or whatever it is they need, so be it. But I've got an old-fashioned work ethos, right? And I think, let's get the job done and do what you want, you know. And it's hard for me because even now, I don't drink beer or drink wine. These guys really, and it's hard sometimes.
Yeah,
You just want to go like, why do you? But you can't be judgmental. You can't impose your, you know, values or your state of mind on these other people. You can't say like, why do you need a drink before you go on stage? Because we're all different, right? It might be nerves, it might be. But I personally, having watched it for the last 60 odd years, it's habit. It's just a routine people get into.
Yeah.
I need a drink now, I'm going to have a drink. And if you just go, well, break the routine. Why would I want to do that?
I went through that. I mean, I drank for a long time, way too much. And then I thought the breaking the habit would be impossible to do because how can you fucking go out anywhere and not have at least a couple of pints? But it's great. It's great for been years now, but it's
Well, good on you. I mean, I think it's easier said than done. It's
Oh,
appreciated.
fucking hell, yeah.
So I've seen it with my own eyes. And listen, I worked with two guys who killed themselves.
Yeah, right.
What
you were saying about how you've got to take into account someone else's thing before you be too judgmental about it. Someone said to me the other day that a similar thing. They said, like, you've got to appreciate that everybody is their own little world, and if you don't understand how their little world has got to where it is, it's very difficult to really, you know.
And your world's not better than their world.
And
that's the other
true.
thing. I mean, the other thing is like, you know, you get a bit self-righteous with these things.
Fucking hell,
and so, and you suddenly go like, wait, doesn't he see any better than everybody else? It's just like their world that they're in, the way it's orbiting is just different from yours. I try and encourage people just to, when I'm working, just to come on.
You have to.
Yeah,
but the self-righteousness thing is getting a little bit overwhelming at the moment.
Yeah. And you mix up a combination of these things and it becomes really toxic, like, you know, what people call wokery now. I mean, wokery had to happen because of the way people were. What do you want to still live in the world of Jim Davidson? Do you know what I mean? We had to move on and evolve. But now it's, you know, things sometimes move too fast.
Yeah, and I think there's too many high-class kind of worries and not worried about genocide, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And you're getting kind of wrapped up about, like in Scotland, for example, they got wrapped up about which pronoun you would use in gender identity to such a degree that it became this big kind of unnegotiable point, very intransigent government position, and not listening to how women felt about having a cervix and being a woman, and they just weren't interested. You're no longer a woman, you know. So they were wrapped up in that, but they weren't dealing with like the worst drug addiction in Western Europe.
Exactly.
So, and you're thinking, why who cares about it? It's an issue, right? I'm not saying it's not an issue, but it's an issue that really affects probably 0.00001% of the population. The largest drug and alcohol deaths in the whole of Western Europe, that's affecting everybody. So let's look at that and focus on that. But we won't forget that. You know, that's something that we need to talk about. But it doesn't need to be as loud as it is.
Yeah,
that needs to be louder.
It's a little bit wonky.
Yeah, it is. I agree. And sometimes, you know, I understand why things have had to change. I mean, I'm very aware of how people use pejorative terms, you know, from the era we're from about people's race and the way they spoke about women and stuff. All that had to change, of course, because it was absolutely repulsive. But we had already changed that.
Yeah.
I'll just give you an example of that. I did this little panel thing recently with Stephen, the drummer from New Order and Joy Division,
Yeah.
and this girl from a band in Liverpool, and we were chatting away and we were having a lot of fun, and she preempted every sentence from a feminist point of view. And I was like, fair enough. But then it became very boring, after a while. And then she said this, you're not going to believe this. She said, well, you two are from an era of lad culture. Punk was a lad thing. There were no strong women in punk. And I went, oh my God, did you just say that? So I went, are you kidding? I said, have you ever heard of Polystyrene? Have you ever heard of the Slits? Have you ever heard of Susie? Have you ever heard of Pauline from Penetration? Have you ever heard of Debbie Harry?
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible. The stupid Pauline Black.
Yeah.
These were amazing women, powerful. They were our equals, if not better, easily. Our betters in many cases.
I don't think it was any case of any gatekeepers keeping women out. It's just there was just certain, like Polystyrene had the guts to get up and do it. It's not a case of anyone saying no.
She was amazing. She was absolutely amazing. You never looked at her and went, it was based on a kind of sexual thing. It was to do with the fact that she had something to say. And that was what was important. I mean, the Slits were amazing, and they were obviously cool and all that, but they were just so new and fresh and different. I remember seeing them for the first time on the White Riot tour, and I just went, oh my God.
I thought they had a lot of guts, but I thought they were fucking terrible.
Well, they were terrible.
The album was great.
But the spirit, though, come on, and Vic remains a big pal of mine. Also, on that tour, like Subway said, Vic getting up and doing what he did in the beginning with them, I really liked. But just the insanity that there was no women in that. Thing that we came out of, and but here we are, Andy. We're still living, we're still talking, we're still breathing, still got something to say for ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure that anybody else needs to listen to anything I've got to say, but I've got 2 kids, grown up adult kids. Right. I don't impose anything on them, but my son's got great values. He supports Clacton Rovers in wherever that is, Clacton Pond, and St. Pauli like I do in Germany, and it's a cool thing. And
how's the book going?
It's all going good. I'm having a really good time. I think you can release a book and try and get it in Waterstones, but you can't make people buy them. You put them in a gig, and suddenly people are going.
Yeah, that's it. That's the new way.
Oh my God, you're writing a book, and so it's on its 3rd edition now. So I'm very proud of it. So we never really got to talk about that, but the Kreuzberg Sonata is about my life in Berlin. I went to live there in 79 and 80, and with this beautiful girl from there, and I wrote that book. It's not a memoir, but it is. Because I fictionalised myself. I found it impossible to write it.
I hate writing. I'm on my 3rd edition of my book. I'm fucking sick of writing about myself.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
Now.
Because you start to feel narcissistic and all the things. But I gave myself a name Lang, because Scots, the language Scots is a Germanic language. So Lang is the same, who means long, and it means long in German. Kirk means Kirk, the same thing. So it's share a lot of words. So the character is me. But it's about I live with this beautiful girl. She committed suicide in our flat, unfortunately, and it's a terrible thing.
Yeah,
something of a Midas touch. Associates are concerned.
You don't want to get too close to me, right? But it's a lovely book. I'm very proud of it, and it's very sweet. And
it's called Days in Europa.
Oh no, I've written a book about the recording, but it's called the Kreuzberg Sonata.
Kreuzberg Sonata.
Yeah, it's about 2 of us living in Kreuzberg. And
when was that released?
Released a year ago, and it's done really well. 3rd edition.
Right.
So
that's an interesting way to do it. I've got to read that.
Yeah, it's a nice.
Do you like writing?
I do. I'm at my happiest. If I was going to be frank with you, because I can do it on my own. I can't do music on my own.
That's exciting. I thought about giving up music altogether just as soon as I discovered writing. I thought, well, this is much
a great thing.
Yeah.
I've developed a new fetish as well, because I'm not a materialistic person, never really have been, but I love fountain pens. And it's a weird thing, and my son says, what is it with these fountain pens, Dad? I go, I just like writing them, because you take your time. And
do you write longhand?
I write longhand, then transcribe, because you're more careful with the words, and you love them more. You love the words more. So it's really nice. It's a great thing. But anyway, listen, man, it's been a great treat talking to you, and you're a legend in my eyes. I'm an Eater fan, Andy Blade fan, and I still remember that when we got the Roxy album and we put it on, and Stuart Adamson was going, "Oh, this band Wire." I mean, fuck them, listen to this.
Well, I'll tell you what, with Skids, after the punk thing, and when Yankee Dollar and all of that stuff was coming out, the punk thing was sort of dead, but the Skids were still going strong. I mean, that still excited me when that came on the radio. You had the Skids and the animation and all those tracks.
Animation is still a lovely song. So our opening thing tonight, we open with that, because this is the Days in Europa tour, which has been difficult because people come along and say, "Can you not play Melancholy Soldiers?" And I mean, it's the Days in Europa tour.
Yeah, right.
That's what you bought a ticket for, you know. Anyway, but
Good
listen,
luck tonight.
yeah,
Good
thank
luck
you. Yeah, it's a joy, mate. You're a legend.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Nice
thank
one.
you. Yeah.
Ben, see you later,
Ben,
mate.
cheers,
Thank you,
mate. Thank you.
dude.
The first one's in the bag.